Welcome to The Match. Meet the minds behind the work. Insights from the best specialist and independent agencies presented by Studio Space. Today I'm joined by Rikki Pearce, Managing Director for APAC at Verve. Verve is a consultancy that combines AI with human and cultural insight to help organizations make better decisions of consequence. Rikki also leads the R&D lab at Verve, which encompasses their AI-powered Verve Intelligent Personas and Simulations proposition, which means, luckily for us, that she's very much at the forefront of the AI-empowered insights industry and the revolution that's going on in that space at the moment. What's flawed in how companies tend to make decisions today?
Well, probably a lot, but from an insights perspective, I think, in an ideal world, we would ask more questions. And the insights industry has had some insoluble problems, right? It's been time, it's been speed, it's been influence, a number of things. And this tech revolution, as you say, that we're going through means that we're able to solve some of these in ways that we never could before. But we need to be doing it really well. And that's where Verve comes in, our Verve Intelligent Personas and Simulations, VIPs, as we affectionately call them, as you mentioned, are designed for decisions of consequence and to give you the superpower to have a customer in every decision that you're making.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, we all say we should really involve customers in how we make decisions, but why is that a hard thing to do for most organizations?
It's expensive, it's slow, it's traditionally flawed. We've got a respondent crisis as well in terms of panel fraud, research being a boring brand touch point. How do we get people to show up in a really meaningful way and really bring that human truth into everything that we're doing? That has been quite difficult to do in the past with the velocity of decision making. So there's a lot of decisions that are made without that human insight, or you're trying to scale your head of insights as well across a business. I remember being at Qantas and getting text messages from the SLT about what was this or what was that or whatever it was, and really hard to scale a person. And what we're able to do now is essentially do that. But as I said, you've got to do it well.
Yeah. Well, help us to demystify what's going on, because there's a lot of talk at the moment around, what one of the really powerful use cases that people are getting excited about is using AI in research. There's lots of discussion around things like synthetic personas, for example. What's your view on what's going on in the landscape right now? Help us to understand.
There's a lot of money coming in as well. So we went to TMRE, imaginatively called the Market Research Event in Vegas at the end of last year, which was great because we were able to really get a sense of the market and who's doing what and how and what it actually does and where we sit in it as well. And the way that we've distilled it now is that there's broadly 4 buckets, and there's a bit of overlap, obviously. But the first one is around synthetic data. So that one is, oftentimes people are talking about sample boosting here. We can, with our products, create synthetic data sets with the right inputs, but usually people are saying there's a hard to get audience. How do I essentially impute or create a bolstered data set? So that's one. And there are some really good people in that space. The next is synthetic panels, much more controversial at the moment. Qualtrics has created this, but it is using client data. So if you're Nestle, you've been doing research on your Qualtrics platform, that's now being used to inform the synthetic respondents that are answering questions from Mars, for example. So there's a bit going on in the IP world there. On the other side of that conversation, you've got Toluna, for example, that are creating synthetic panels. And you've got abstractions of their current panel respondents. But we've still got an issue in the panel world and the respondent crisis fraud, that kind of thing. And so that's not particularly auditable at this point. And that's at this point, and that's from a discussion we had with TMRE. It might absolutely get better. I'm sure it will. It's the other thing with AI is everything is the worst it will ever be, and it's improving exponentially. So it's a really exciting space, and it's exciting to see what people are doing. Then you've got digital twins. You'll hear a lot of people talking about digital twins in terms of humans. That's not really where they came from. They're more about systems. So I don't know if I'm going to go to the gym this afternoon, really. So trying to predict an individual can be quite difficult. And so a lot of companies in this area have sort of moved away from that and gone more into the synthetic personas space, which is technically where we sit. And those personas are based on essentially segments and subsegments. So you've got that sort of greater level of reliability around them as well. So that's broadly the space. I'm sure people will say I've missed things. Or
yeah, I mean, there are definitely quite a few different approaches that are emerging. It's easy to understand why people are often confused.
Exactly. And there's a lot within each of those buckets as well. But we were talking at TMRE and people were sort of staring at us like, what's a persona and simulation? Yeah. And then in the end, we were like, synthetic personas. Oh,
right.
So now we've gone,
that seems to be the language
we need to use that language
in the market.
But we've really disliked the language.
Yes, I understand.
So we think it really cheapens the product. So we say that we're at the silk end of synthetic.
Well, let's get into talking about VIPs and let's understand a bit more about what they are and how they work and the advantages. Tell us a bit more about VIPs.
So VIPs has been a lot of fun, a lot of work. We've been doing it for 3.5 years. I'll do my plug. They're award-winning. We've won at SMR with Mars and Samsung, all of this. But I'm incredibly proud of them, and I'm really lucky to have my dual roles of, sales in APAC and North America, and then also leading R&D. So able to have a lot of confidence in the product. I'm a quanti, master's in stats, so I need to feel confident in what we're selling, and I certainly have that. So what we do is we've created VIPs as something that is for decisions of consequence as opposed to potentially directionally correct. The thing with AI is that it's a very convincing liar. And if you're only right 60% of the time, what decision can you make if it's wrong? So we're very much about getting to 95% confidence in terms of predictive validity as well. And we're achieving that. We've done well over 100 tests, and we've run those tests every month on every client instance. And we do that through this H-stage process. We've got specialist teams working on it, and everything we do is bespoke to our client. So this is not an off-the-shelf SaaS product. Mm-hmm. Everything is done for you, and you continue to have consulting support through that. And that way we can see, if an innovation team over here is asking questions about something that, they shouldn't be because we don't think that there's enough confidence in that, then we can advise on that, and then advise on what primary research we need to do as well. And then there's this sort of virtuous circle where the primary research that you do, the real human truth that continues to fuel the simulation, is actually really valuable. People are showing up to do qual. There's AI moderated qual now, which means you can do that at scale, or you can do, if you've got high net worth, for example, you can do what we used to do with Platinum Ones at Qantas and host a Neil Perry event and use that as sort of how you bring in that human insight to continue to evolve the simulations as well.
Yeah.
So it's a living organism, and then that's scalable across the business.
Well, I'm keen to get into some of the possible, a bit more on some of the possible use cases and applications of VIPs, but maybe before we go there, how can you say a little bit more about how the VIP approach differs from traditional human-based research approaches? Pros, cons, major differences.
Yeah, so I think it's not a binary option. You still need both of these things. What we're able to do, though, is now create a living asset that is always on, always available, and is trained for your use cases. A key difference in what we're able to do with our VIPs is they're not just a qualitative interface. We're able to do lots of generalized linear regression, choice modeling, lots of max diff, whatever it is. So quant in the back end, basically. So that if they're trained for that, if we've got the right data to be able to do that. So that's the point of them, and that they're scalable.
Yeah.
It also means that there's no research ever lost.
Yeah.
Because it sits all together.
So it's actually, in one sense, it's a way to get more scale and ongoing value from the human-based research that you would still do.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about where CMOs are spending money on research, and then where they're not spending money on research, so you think creative testing, or they're doing A/B testing on platform, for example, that can all now be run through an audience expert, personas, whatever it is, a futures expert, and then we can evolve that as well when we get that real-time feedback.
Right.
We also have a cultural layer. So there's a gaming client in the US that we're kicking off with next week. It's gaming. They need always-on microtrends from TikTok. So we're able to do cultural analysis from TikTok every week and update the cultural layer in that way as well. So really dynamic.
Yeah, super interesting.
There's no more like 200-page decks in the top drawer, which is I'm super excited about, because I don't like reading decks.
Yeah. Well, we talked at the start of this conversation around your sort of focus on bringing this capability into making better decisions when you've got decisions of consequence to make. Tell us a bit more about what you mean by that when you talk about decisions of consequence, and how this approach enables better decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of examples. So innovation, concept testing, brand identity, even opportunity spacing. So if we look at it in a workflow, based on your background, Robin, you could look at a CCD sort of workflow. So you've got your opportunity spacing, knowing what's known. So you would have a knowledge mode for that the team can work with. Then you would go into maybe an audience expert, or the segment experts themselves would come back and generate a bunch of ideas for you to have a look at. You can then test them again, and it could be with the audience experts, or you might have experts that are about the future. So future of sustainability, future of technology, whatever it is, that then assess that, future of the industry, that then assess that. That might be then when you want to go and talk to some real people and have a real conversation with them, but you've whittled down all of these ideas. And then you would go back and then refine with the audience experts to give you that confidence to go forward.
So understand, this is quite a different approach from maybe what many clients are used to when they think about research and insight. How does a client get started with Verve Intelligent Personas? What's the client experience look like?
It's really gaining momentum now, and it's a good question. It's one that we get a lot. We're very conscious that people are buying this for the first time, procurement teams, for example. And so what we're seeing is the US is much further ahead than other markets, so Europe and APAC is together. And the experience tends to be, obviously they've got very big budgets. They are doing a small sort of paid for trial. So maybe they'll choose one market and 6 segments, something like that. And then we'll get that going and we'll roll that out, and then they might go out to their 50 markets after that. So it tends to be sort of this contained piece, and we work with them very closely on that, and then that rolls out to scale as well. We've got and then it rolls out to different teams and use cases. So another Australian client, we created more of a customer strategy set of personas, which is really useful for the exec, but it's not really useful for their campaigns team. So we're going to create some performance marketing personas. That means that team is able to not test on platform anymore, but that's all behavioral based so that they can target appropriately. So it's using what they're buying with. So you'll have multiple sets across the business. Another global tech company, they've got, as part of their workflow, they've got now multiple different sets across different markets. But one is that they've got an audience expert, an industry expert, and then 3 or 4 futures experts that then work in their innovation loop. So it tends to just roll out based on what the needs are across the business, and then obviously scale across markets as well.
Yeah, excellent.
That's what we want.
So we'll have lots of people who are listening to this or watching this who are right now thinking about how do they bring AI into their organizations to help them get better, more frequent, and more quality customer insight as they make decisions. What would you say to them in terms of how they get started and how they make the case internally?
Well done for wanting to get started is one piece. I think at this point in time, every day that you delay is another day that you compound your disadvantage against your competitors, because they are really out there doing this. In terms of making the case internally, we very much think about this as having three key stakeholders or sponsors. So the first is your CMO. With them, I would think about all the insight that you don't have at the moment. How can you get that? And then how can you really amplify any insight that you do have to be enterprise-wide? I've worked in businesses trying to embed segmentations, for example. It's incredibly difficult and it's hard to scale the people that can do that well. So that's that one. CFO, what can we substitute out? What kind of value do we think that we can create by generating this insight where it never was before? Why? And honestly, the costs of this is comparative to running focus groups. So in-person focus groups, it's much cheaper than doing that. And then you've got your CTO. So you are, and procurement, you're immediately going to get questions about, privacy, security, PII, and make sure you're working with a really credible provider that understands all of that. We've got our answers to SMR's 30 questions on this, which we can link to people, and we're able to onboard large financial institutions now in 6 weeks. So it's not a game for the CTO, and you need to be working with someone that's able to very quickly answer their questions really confidently as well.
That's excellent. That's really helpful in terms of framing how to think about bringing this into your organization. Rikki, this has been a brilliant conversation. You've really helped demystify what's going on with AI in research and insight at the moment. You've given us some great practical tips on how to get going and how to get the value. I really loved the way you think about this in terms of it being an opportunity to scale the power of insight within your organization as you make those consequential decisions. So thank you so much for making time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Want access to the best specialist marketing and digital services? Check out Studio Space, the agency marketplace and procurement solution that gives big brands a faster, simpler, and more flexible way to access the most extraordinary agencies.